Hello, Jess and John Nation. This is the Jess and John podcast. I'm Jess.
And I am John. Hello, JJ Pod.
And we have a really great episode for you today. It's a solid interview, to say the least. It's an excellent interview. You're in for a treat. We talked to Alexis Hinkley, traveling nurse Lex, about life as a travel nurse. What's that job like? Her perspective on life and death as someone who sees a lot of it. How it shows up in the hospital. Why is a little girl in a red dress in room 14 all the time? You're gonna get to hear the answer to this.
I went into this fully expecting like a 15-minute interview, but we just kept it rolling as its own separate thing because she's got a lot of really great stuff to say, really good experience. As a frontline nurse, not only during COVID, but in our incredibly broken system, it is much better than I thought.
Yeah, we got into how a lack of insurance and healthcare coverage impacts care and why Kaiser actually wants to sue Lex for things that she has said about it. So we cover all of this and more. Without further ado, let's get into it. All right, so we are here with Alexis Hinkley, who we call Lex, also known on the internet as traveling nurse Lex, and a traveling nurse and content creator. Welcome to the Jess and John pod.
Hello, friends.
Hi, Lex.
It's so great to be here.
We want to start at the beginning. Tell us where you grew up and what your parents did.
Okay. So I'm going to pray that they don't listen to this because I'm just going to be really honest.
Our audience
Mom
is
and
huge,
Dad,
so good luck.
you know what? And I've got a big Catholic family. So in fact, if any of my 17 aunts or uncles hear this, turn it off. I grew up in Issaquah, Washington. I'm the oldest of 5. I grew up Catholic. My mom worked for AIG in the home loan industry, pretty much out of high school. Never went to college. And then my dad was also in the same industry. And so we did pretty well as a family up until the recession hit. And then my mom was out of a job for the first time since she was 17. My dad was also struggling, but no one would hire my mom because she'd never gone to college. And so it was like her experience working for the past 20 years didn't matter. And it was just kind of a nightmare. So then she did odd jobs here and there, was unemployed for a while. That was really hard for her and hard for me too, because I think as a kid, you grow up with a certain level of economic privilege, and then all that's ripped away from you. And suddenly you're having to sell hand-me-down clothes to buy Taco Bell.
Real as fuck.
Yeah. So I grew up in Issaquah. I was super privileged in the sense of my education. I had access to an incredible education. But things were rough. Living in Washington as a child was hard. There's a lot of negative influences there for children, I believe. It's my personal opinion. And I realized that investing in my education was going to be my ticket out of there. So that's what I did.
What part of Washington is that? Because you got coastal Washington, and then you got some real flinty, people doing their own thing. Washington, where was that?
Totally. So it's what I like to affectionately call Ted Bundy land.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah. So it's out in the mountains a little bit, 45 minutes due east of Seattle. And actually Ted Bundy picked up his first 2 victims from the lake I grew up on. Hey. And it's suburban, but there are areas of the town that are still very rural. Things have changed though. I left when I was 18. I think it's a much more suburban area now because Microsoft has essentially purchased the entire city. Say what you will about that, but I think things have definitely changed. And a lot of people are getting priced out. People that lived and grew up in that area are now getting priced out even further into the mountains. And that's not a unique experience. I think most urban areas are going through that right now. But Issaquah's just been crazy because we have Microsoft, Boeing, Amazon, Costco, all these like tech companies that are headquartered there. And so with their influx of foreign workers, it pushes a lot of folks that may have had family. Wait, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Totally.
Oh my God, sorry. Your camera's froze and I was like, oh no, did I disconnect? Okay, well let me continue that train of thought. With the influx of, workers that are being brought into the area that were not necessarily from there, it pushes a lot of the folks that were and are from there out. So it's crazy. Like my hometown is 45 minutes outside of Seattle, and you cannot find a 1-bedroom or a bedroom in a house for less than $1,500 a month.
Oof.
Oh, there's way too many stories like that in America. I mean, I grew up in Stamford, Connecticut, which is, sort of a suburb of New York in a way, just over the border. And no one can afford to retire there. They're going to North Carolina and South Carolina. And then people that live there can't afford to retire there. It's just the great reshuffling of America thanks to corporations right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I want to go back a little bit. I think you touched on something that a lot of like just working class kids go through, which is I have to get out. And we were all told like, going to college is a way to get out physically, but also maybe have a ticket out of, the economic circumstances you are in. So you started investing in your education. Was becoming a traveling nurse the goal then?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, no. The thing that happened for me is I've been employed since I was 14 years old. In fact, when I was 13, I created a Tumblr page and I started running Google ads on that Tumblr page.
Damn.
So technically speaking, I've been working since I was 13. Even earlier than that, if you consider babysitting. But I've never not had a job. And my parents both grew up extremely poor. My dad's dad was murdered when he was like 15.
Wow.
That's another conversation. He was killed by the mob. My grandpa legalized topless bars in the state of Washington, and then the mob was like, "Give us your money," and he said no, and you don't get to say no to the mob. Long story short.
Wow.
Yeah, that's its own. We got a lot of lore to get into. But after that happened, my dad's family lost everything. Like there were 6 kids to support. There was no income. So both my parents grew up really impoverished. And I was from a very young age taught that education was going to be my way out. And thankfully, not that I ever listened to my parents, I did this one time. And in high school, when there was a lot of chaos at home, I have an immediate family member that was struggling with addiction. And there were a lot of issues like outside of school. And I just kind of found that school was like the one thing that was completely under my control. And so it became a little bit of a crutch to me. And then I got to college and I literally sat and calculated out, okay, if I'm paying X for my tuition, then each lecture is $75. And I just gaslit myself, if you will, into going to class because I was like, if I sleep through this class, I'm wasting $75. And that felt like such an enormous amount to me at the time that I guilted myself into attending every single class I could.
Wow.
But it worked. I graduated nursing school with a 3.96 GPA. I will also credit some of that to autism. Thank you, God. But I was able to like really set myself up well financially through my education. And I know like in medicine, we have to go to school. We have to get our licensure. There's not really a way around that. So I don't think that that's necessarily what every single person has to do, especially if you're not in medicine. But for me, that was it. That was my ticket out. So yeah.
And as a travel nurse, are you in a nurses union? Do they let you be in one? Is there one?
So yeah, no, there's no national nurses union the way that cops have. That does not exist. I would love for that to exist. I think most nurses would that have not been severely propagandaed by their hospitals. There's a very heavy effort to demonize unions on behalf of the hospitals in this country right now. In fact, my first job out of nursing school was at St. Anthony Medical Center in Lakewood, Colorado. Shout out. And they made all of their new grad nurses sit through an hour-long lecture about how harmful unions were.
Wow.
I was also making $26 night shift in the ICU. So.
Did you like when you had to sit through that, what was that like your first workplace experience with, kind of the labor movement or, the fight for nurses, whatever classification they are, to be treated fairly in the workplace? What was that like, and what's it like now that you've been doing this for a while?
So I think unfortunate for that hospital in particular, I really, like I said, valued my education. And one of the things I really liked was history. So I, simply put, was not going to be drinking the Kool-Aid that unions were bad when I already knew all of the benefits that we had as a society, like weekends, and benefits and overtime and any form of good treatment from corporate America has not been given to us. It has been taken by force by the workers. So they were not going to Kool-Aid me into thinking unions were bad. And it was insane to me that some of my coworkers were stupid enough to drink the Kool-Aid, if you know what I mean. But again, I don't want to say stupid, but like didn't have the background that I did to know the historical context of what a union does for a group of working people. So no. To answer your question, travel nurses are not unionized anywhere. There are specific unionized hospitals in the country, but there is not a national nurses union. There are certain states like California that have had legislation pushed forward, and California, Oregon, and Washington is working on one now. Legislation that basically mandates how nurses are treated and therefore how patients are treated in the hospital. And all of that has been controlled and orchestrated by unions. So again, there is not a single piece of social progression in the workplace or otherwise that has occurred without collective organizing. But yeah, I now work in California. I'm actually technically not a travel nurse anymore. I stepped away from that role a year ago to take a more permanent position in a hospital system that I felt really well represented by. But yeah, no travel nurses in the country are unionized. That was a really long way to answer that question.
That's okay. I think a lot of people, it's like forever, the union movement was on the decline. Not a lot of people knew about it. And I'm always fascinated to hear how people come to be aware of the labor movement, because I think, we can make a lot of gains, but not until people get over that like default propaganda lines. Super, super fascinating to hear how you came to it yourself. So you have, any nurse, correct me if I'm wrong, Lex, but nurses see some shit. Is this right?
That is correct. That is just objectively correct.
Objectively correct.
Just as we suspected.
Just as we suspected.
Well, it's actually literally correct. We see shit.
I imagine all the time.
Shit.
So you're out there, you're seeing shit. But you're doing that in a healthcare system that is, how do we put this, fucked up, to say the least. So I'm wondering, what in your entire experience about being a nurse for however long you have in our healthcare system, what sticks out with you the most over that experience, that you just can't stop thinking about?
I will say, and I've said this before, but I'm going to say it again. Nothing radicalized me into more of a militant leftist than working as a frontline healthcare worker. Sorry, I'm not plural. I'm not multiple people. Can I start this over? Sorry, let me restart this Please. Statement. Because I want this to be clear. and I want my hair to look decent. All right, there we go.
Yeah, we're gonna clip this, so get ready.
Perfect. I have said this before, and I will say it again. Nothing has radicalized me more into militant leftism than working as a frontline healthcare worker in this country. I've worked in 7 states. I've worked at over 15 hospitals, and I've worked on both coasts. Like, I've worked in the center of the country. I've worked in so many areas, and I have seen the same general themes that happen in every single society, every single community across our country. And I think that nurses, and particularly ER nurses, and I'm a float nurse, so I go to the ER a lot. Float nurse just being, they can send me anywhere. I've been at this for going on 6.5 years. So I'm in the ER a lot. And I think that nurses, but particularly ER nurses, have a very unique scope into like the crux of the issues facing our society, whether it's the opioid epidemic or crime or domestic violence, inaccessible healthcare, avoidance of healthcare because of costs. I mean, name it, we see it. The unhoused like community and the crisis that they face, like the crises that they face, because there's so many. We see all of it, and we see it in a very guttural, a very visceral way. And a lot of the times we see the end consequences of these things. And for me, that's why when I look around at the nurses around me and I don't see militant leftists, I'm like, are y'all fucking paying attention? Like, hold on.
Yeah.
Like, have you guys picked your head up out of our charting for long enough to realize what's happening to our community? And so I think thankfully, over the past 10 years, particularly over the past 5 years, I've built an audience online of healthcare workers that have picked up on those things, and other people. It's not just healthcare workers that follow me. But there are enough of us that do see it, but there are not enough. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. I mean, you said 10 years, 5 years. So you were a frontline worker through COVID, right?
Oh yeah. Big time.
Oh man.
COVID ICU, baby.
Wow.
That is really crazy. I mean, what do you think that tell us what that was like, but also what do you think that collectively did to us that we don't really talk about enough from your perspective?
You know, I was just talking about this last night at dinner. I was at dinner with a few of my friends that were also COVID ICU nurses. We met back then. We've been friends ever since. And we were kind of having just a candid conversation about the show The Pit, and how interesting it was that it took a HBO show for people to realize that COVID was fucked up for people in healthcare. I don't know if folks just blocked it out, or if it was a convenient thing to forget about because of the guilt maybe they felt. I don't know. But yeah, I think a lot of people just do not recognize what we went through. And I have friends that were combat veterans that have told me pretty much unanimously that I have seen more dead bodies than any combat veteran that they knew. And particularly January 2021 was like the worst shit I've ever seen. Like we were tagging and bagging probably like 4 to 6 people a shift. And it was right as the vaccine was coming out, but no one really had access to it yet. And there was a particular wave that hit in that month, at least in Denver where I was, that just took people down. And I think we also didn't understand the virus enough at that point to initiate enough preventative interventions to stop people from getting to the ICU. Because honestly, like with COVID, once you made it to the ICU, like once you were that level, once you were that progressed in the disease process, your chances of survival were like 20%, at least at that time. So there were like months that we went months without seeing anyone make it. And I don't know how to explain what that does to the human brain to people that didn't live through it. And then to think that like any of our healthcare workers still have student loans. Are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
hold on.
Yeah.
Not only should we not have student loans, we should, one, at least have baseline first responder discounts, because we're not included in most first responder discounts. What the fuck is that shit? But yeah, I think people very conveniently forgot and like forget, because it's still happening. We still are losing 300 to 400 people a week to COVID. As you may have heard, there's a new variant that is causing a symptom people are referring to as razor blade throat. Yike.
Ooh, that does not sound fun.
No, and I just like, I also don't think people realize how much expertise we lost as a healthcare field during the pandemic because of the fuckery that was happening. We lost so many like veteran nurses. I was trained in my ICU by nurses that had not only been in the ICU, but on that specific floor for 14 years. They retired. They're all gone now. You can't replace that level of expertise. Like there's no book that teaches you what you learn in 14 years of critical care nursing. And so now you have the blind leading the blind in a lot of states. California and the West Coast is a little bit better because nurses are treated better there because of unions. But in a lot of areas around the country, it's new grads teaching new grads, and no one knows what the fuck they're doing. Sorry, not to be harsh. And if there are nurses listening, love you, sis. But you know exactly what I'm talking about. Like, if you worked before the pandemic, you understand this dynamic. And it's not to say that people aren't doing their best and trying. It's just simply to say that you cannot replace that level of clinical experience. And we lost a lot.
That's a lot of just death to bear witness to. And that's not like new to the healthcare industry, but that's an insane amount or a volume that is not typical. And you also experience healing, probably people that show up thinking they're at the end and then they end up getting better. It's a really interesting thing that your job has you just be a part of that and lend your energy to that all of the time. I'm curious, like, has that changed your thoughts on like the life death cycle? Like, do you believe in life after death? If you're comfortable talking about that, how has it shaped you?
So first of all, there's no limits. So you can ask me anything. I wish I had a filter.
What's
God,
up, Catholic family?
What's God?
But no, Catholics are spooky as shit. What do you mean? Like, Catholics are like, no one believes in ghosts more than Catholics. The Holy Ghost is literally one of the Trinity, my guy. But so yeah, I've seen some fucking weird shit, and I think you'd be shocked to hear just how many, especially critical care nurses, we see some fucked up shit. I have held the hand of probably upwards of 200 to 400 folks as they died.
Wow.
And because I guess for me it was like, that's someone's dad, that's someone's grandma, like that's someone's something. And like, especially during COVID when we weren't allowing visitors, it was beyond my moral limit to allow anyone to pass alone. Wow. And I put myself at risk a lot because like it's an unnecessary per management, an unnecessary exposure, because you're not providing care necessarily, but You are. And so I think that has really changed things for me. Also, like, I worked in a hospital that was built around a 200-year-old chapel, and I was working night shift. So me and my coworkers would take our lunch breaks at 3 a.m. and go down to the 200-year-old chapel. And yeah, I definitely believe in ghosts. I also brought up earlier in the episode, my grandfather was murdered in 1975, and his ghost was everywhere when I was a kid. To the point where I feel like I knew him even though I didn't. So I definitely believe in ghosts. I've definitely seen things in my professional career that has reiterated that belief. Not reiterated, but you know what I mean. Like, there have been plenty of evidence pieces to back up how I feel. But I also understand, like, why people don't. And, like, my partner is a neuroscientist, and we've had plenty of intellectual debates, if you will, about what consciousness is. And they are of the belief that consciousness is a biological product. And I don't necessarily, like, disagree with that, but I just don't think that that's the full story. There's too many people that have had the exact same shared delusion, if you will, in their final moments of having family members come back to get them. There was one room in particular in my ICU, room 14, that we knew if the patient brought up a little girl, specifically a little girl in a red dress, go get the crash cart. We knew if a patient in that room brought up the little girl in the red dress, they were going to die, or at least try to. And, like, how do you explain that? Like, there's no science that like has an answer for that. So
thank you for the sweet dreams that I will have tonight.
You know what? By all intents and purposes, she apparently was a cute little blonde baby girl that was just there, I think, to receive people.
That's so much more comforting than, like, a weird sleep paralysis demon coming to, like, harvest you from the earth.
John.
Well,
that's what
she's not the only delusion people have. I've also heard a lot of people bring up dogs, and I feel like I can tell based on the end of life delusions where they're going, if you know what I mean. Because if you're seeing dogs, I don't think you're going to the good place.
Interesting. I mean, I guess it depends on, like, what kind of dog we're talking about here. You know, like,
they're usually like black hellhounds.
Real hellhounds. Oh my
I've heard people.
Wow. Is it okay? Yeah, it's like real cherub hellhound spectrum. Okay, wow,
that's fascinating.
I need a sip of water. Sorry.
No, go for it. Also, it's a good time to ask if you have a time limit or not.
I don't.
You have a heart out.
Fine.
Okay. And it's a good time for me too.
But yeah, I definitely believe in ghosts. I have experienced plenty outside the hospital. I lived in a old tuberculosis hospital in college that had been repurposed into a sorority house. There was some weird shit that went down there. And I just don't think you would. I think you would struggle to find a nurse that doesn't. Especially night shift nurses. Like, I've had my hair pulled, I've had my scrubs tugged on, but I also have sought this shit out. Like I said, I was going into the chapel at 3 a.m. Like, you know, so.
Okay, I'm gonna take the liberty to ask here: do you ever give care based on intuition? Has there ever been like I'm gonna go check on this patient and you don't know why you feel like that? Has there been parts where your intuition drives your care and improves quality of care?
Oh yeah, I had this happen last month, actually. I had this patient that I knew was actively dying, but he had been holding on for like days, and like life support had been removed. He didn't have a feeding tube. You know, he was just existing, was no longer conscious, was no longer responding to like pain, stimuli, anything. And I was sitting at the nurse's station. I'd been checking on him periodically, like on the hour all day, because I just knew it was coming. And I was sitting at the nurse's station and I felt someone tap me on the shoulder. And I turned around and there was no one there. And I instinctually knew, oh, that's him. He's saying, come and get me. And I went in the room and he had stopped breathing. He still had a pulse at that time. So he had just stopped breathing. And I felt his pulse as it stopped. And it's like, so yeah, I've definitely had intuitive moments. Now that could have been a coincidence. That could have been a little muscle twitch and I just read it the wrong way, but I read it the wrong way in the right way.
Wow.
So yeah, I definitely have had intuitive moments. I think there's also, I don't know if it's intuition, but like it is my personal belief that if a patient tells you I'm going to die or I feel like I'm going to die, they are, girl, prepare, you know, like people don't just say that. And most of the time when people have said that to me, they were right. And if they didn't die, they at least tried to. So I don't think that's intuition. I think that that's just like listening to people when they tell you things, which a lot of healthcare workers really struggle with.
You've said this a couple times. They try to die. That means like they crash out and you have to revive them, right? Okay.
Yeah. Like they code, their heart stops, they stop breathing, and then we have to, you know, pump their chest or bag them, initiate life-saving measures. And, you know, we either get them back or we don't. That's the name of the game.
And for a lot of people, like, especially in America, this is a huge problem. My dad did this. When you don't have insurance and you don't have a lot of money, you delay care. My dad didn't go to the ER till his appendix literally ruptured. He was like, I just have a stomach ache. And so this creates huge complications for our healthcare workers because they're dealing with people with such severe conditions. Can you talk about how you see a lack of insurance influencing either care within the hospital or people delaying care?
Yeah, absolutely. So I will say specifically, and you know what, they already threatened to sue me, so let's just name drop them again. Kaiser is a big issue with this. Any of the large conglomerates that own both the insurance provider and the healthcare servicer, they're evil. There is no way to ethically provide healthcare if you own both sides of the system. You are going to be financially invested in preventing people from accessing their expensive healthcare. And when I was working at a Kaiser hospital, I had a guy who drove from a neighboring city. And when I say neighboring, it was a 2.5 hour drive, because he had chest pain. And guess what? He was having a heart attack. He drove 2.5 hours because he didn't have a Kaiser hospital near him. And he was like, oh, they'll just transfer me. Like, we shouldn't be having this type of influence in our healthcare system. You should, if you have chest pain, you should know instinctually. And he should have known that he could go to any hospital and be treated for that. But because of this mindset that we instill in people when you have branded healthcare systems that they have to stay within the system, situations like that arise because people don't have good health literacy. They don't understand EMTALA, which is the emergency medical. It's an act. It's a federal law that basically mandates, without getting too into policy, it mandates healthcare hospitals, healthcare providers across the country to provide at least life-saving measures, regardless of anyone's insurance status, regardless of identity, regardless of what's going on. And it's a big law that's being contested right now, especially in regards to reproductive care, because states with these draconian abortion laws want to be able to just let women die. And that is actually still against the law, unfortunate for them. So EMTALA states that you can go to any hospital and receive care, but people don't always know that. And especially for our undocumented folks and for just immigrants now in general, because we have reached a point of fascism where your documentation status doesn't matter. If you are the wrong color or have immigrated here at one point or another, you are running the risk of being apprehended by the Gestapo. So, and I'm saying that with my full chest. ICE are the Gestapo, and I think they should be chased out of our towns the way that community members of South Los Angeles chased the Night Stalker. Like, we should be coming at them with pitchforks, but that's another topic. Delaying healthcare and encouraging people to delay healthcare. That's another thing too, is like states like Texas. Greg Abbott has pushed forward this law that mandates that hospitals ask people about their immigration status. Now, again, EMTALA states you cannot deny care for any reason because of like someone's immigration or insurance status or otherwise. But people don't know that. And so just the idea that you might be asked about your immigration status at the hospital is naturally going to cause delays in care. I have seen it. I work in a border town. One of the hospitals I work at is literally 20 minutes from, it's the first hospital you hit when you cross the border. And roughly 60 to 70% of my patients there speak Spanish. I speak Spanish. And so many of them, either them directly or family members, delay care because of this fear. And that is so unethical. It is evil. It is horrible. No one on earth deserves to feel that way when they are in their most vulnerable moments. I think it is a massive moral failure on behalf of our country. And it's heartbreaking because, like, I don't think anyone on earth would look me in the eyes and genuinely tell me that they think a grandma having a stroke deserves to be ignored because she's from Venezuela. And if you do think that, I genuinely believe you need to be taken out back like Old Yeller. Okay? Like, I don't think those people belong in our society. And I'm, again, going to say it with my full chest. If you think evil thoughts like that, your access to this society should be revoked. Because what do you mean? What do you mean that grandma or otherwise any human being should be denied help because of a situation that they may not have had any control over?
It's crazy. I think the people who believe that the most, unfortunately for us, are in control of the government, and they're just kind of like selling all of this, bullshit propaganda out there that, unfortunately, like in a vacuum, a lot of people buy. I was going to say, I'm so glad you talked about this law in EMTALA, because, one, now I know these things. Now our listeners know these things. I was going to say at the top of this that I think the existence of such a law probably speaks to the overall, like, healthcare, the state, just the starting point baseline of the healthcare system that you're working with. But the fact that that's also under being contested right now, as you mentioned, I think probably speaks to the garbage situation that we find ourselves in. And speaking of that garbage situation, if you can put a name to the, people and things, what is holding us back? Why is this system that is so bad? I mean, I went in for routine STI testing recently, something that should absolutely be free. And in many cases,
good for you. Good for you. Men don't do that a lot. So good for you.
Men, go get your shit tested.
Men, go get tested, please.
Go get tested. Well, I did. And then I get a $700 bill back from routine testing. And and it's always a crapshoot. There's a lot of ways to get tested for free. Do not let that scare you off from testing. But it just speaks to the fact that you have to advocate for yourself in this system, where in most cases where you need healthcare, the last thing you want to do is be internet shopping, So what is holding this system in place, and what is standing in the way of changing this, revolutionizing it from somebody who's been in this system? What's holding us back?
I will tell you one law, one legislative change that would fix virtually everything. We are America. we are one of the only countries on earth that allows health insurance companies to be for profit. They are mandated by law to be nonprofit in virtually every other country, like virtually everywhere else. And there's a reason for that. Because if you are pulling a profit off of providing health insurance, you are naturally going to make unethical choices in order to make more money. Because of that, prices for healthcare are skyrocketed. Access to it is revoked. So if we were able to move to a single payer healthcare system, much like Medicare for All, which is one that some folks in our elected groups have been, calling for a while now. If we move to a single payer system, it would fix virtually everything in our healthcare system. And I'm not talking about like government ran hospitals. That's its own thing. I am talking about insurance specifically. I don't know if I trust the U.S. government to run hospitals. I've seen what's happening at the VA. It's not pretty. However, insurance, like my personal opinion, Medicaid, not even Medicare, Medicaid should be available to all citizens. We have the ability to provide it. We can afford it. And why wouldn't we? Like, the folks in Congress have free healthcare.
I don't know. Why?
Sorry, you cut out. Sorry, what'd you say?
I said, yeah, no, I don't know. That's a great question. Why?
Yeah, because we're keeping people in line by keeping them in an impoverished state. The working class is not able to revolt if they are fighting for the means for survival. So
I literally, like I have to go contest this $700 bill instead of rage against my elected officials.
Yeah. I think we in this country keep people dumb and we keep people poor so that we can control them easier. And I could give you a million examples of each one of those things. But healthcare is a big way to do that. Medical bankruptcy is the number one cause of bankruptcy in the United States. It is the number one driver of people into homelessness and to being unhoused. And then that just it becomes a vicious cycle because unhoused folks are oftentimes put in impossible situations where if there's a storm coming through, their only available option for shelter might be an ER. Because simply put, we don't have enough shelters for people. We don't have enough new shelters opening for the new unhoused folks that are, being left on the streets. We see folks come in way too late with severe medical conditions because they've been living on the street and they didn't think they could access healthcare. And it's just really unfortunate because, like, again, things just snowball. We don't have social services to the point that we need to. Like, we don't have any safety nets in this country. We think we do. But what we actually have is a greased chute of poverty that we send people down because you lose your job, you lose your health insurance.
Slide in Boston, we're all just stuck on it.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Yeah, you lose your job, then you lose your health insurance. If you lose your health insurance and you trip on the fucking sidewalk and you injure yourself, well, good luck covering that. And then, oops, now you can't pay your rent. And then, oops, now you're on the street. Like, it's literally just like one act. We are all in the working class. Truly, we are all one accident away from being unhoused. And I don't think enough of y'all are acting that way. We really need to have like a national come to Jesus moment and realize that we deserve better than being one unfortunate circumstance away from having our entire lives flipped upside down. And we can have better. We just need to demand it from the people in charge.
Amen. I mean, couldn't agree more.
But yeah.
Okay, Lex, let's turn. John, you good if we go on? Okay, yeah.
Totally.
Okay, I'm curious if you see people that are generally unhealthy, because a big thing in America is the cheaper food is worse for you. And when I studied abroad in South Africa, and all of my friends, the number one thing they wanted to know is like, is McDonald's really cheaper than like chicken, rice, and veggies from the store for dinner? And I was like, oh, by a lot. And they were fascinated. But do you see people that are just unhealthy, not only because they're delaying care because of no insurance, but because they have to work crazy hours and not take care of themselves?
Yeah, I think it's a super nuanced issue.
Yeah.
I think that like the food deserts in this country and the inaccessibility of produce is one issue. I think also the fact that we don't prioritize preventative health care the way that other countries do. Like, look at Japan. People in Japan on average, and this statistic is so old, so this might actually be even higher now. People in Japan on average see their primary healthcare physician once every 8 weeks. I don't even think I see mine like more than 3 times a year. And that's just because I am prescribed a regulated substance. So I have to. But we don't prioritize preventative health care. The preventative health care we do have, a lot of it is pseudoscience. Things like chiropractors, which is not real.
Let's get into it.
This is a hot button for me. So what's up with chiropractors? Because I'm always afraid. I'm like, these people are going to make me shit myself, and I'm not totally sure that they're like doing good things.
So here's my thing. Most pseudosciences I don't care about. If you are like acupuncture, right? There's virtually no risk in acupuncture. If you do it and you think it helps you, then hell yeah, sister, go right ahead. My issue is the fact that me alone, as a like nurse, specifically a nurse that had worked in a neuro ICU, in my career, I have seen 3 patients who had what is called a vertebral artery dissection due to a chiropractor. And what that is, let me explain it in non-medical terms. You have essentially 4 major arteries that feed your brain with blood. And 2 of them are your vertebral arteries, which run up the back of your spinal cord into your brain stem. When you get your neck adjusted, you are risking tearing one of those vertebral arteries. And when you tear that vertebral artery, your body is immediately going to form a clot to try and stop you from bleeding out. That clot then goes straight up into your brainstem. And your brainstem is a really weird place to have a stroke because a lot of the times they don't look like normal strokes. So we have this acronym in medicine called BFAST with strokes. It's balance, eyes, face. Wait, A is arms. Hold on, y'all. Hold on. Balance. Oh my God. Wait, I literally am having a dyslexic moment. Please hold.
We are holding.
Fast. Balance, eyes, face, arms, speech, time. Okay, I was right.
Nailed it.
Second guessed myself. And those are like common changes that can occur when you're having a stroke. But those are common changes that happen when you're having a stroke off your median cerebral arteries, which are up here. Okay. That's the front of your brain. Your vertebral arteries, if you have a brainstem stroke, shit is mad weird, dude. I had a guy that went to a chiropractor, young dude. This is when I tell you that nurses see shit that's worse than death. This is one of the ones I'm talking about. Young guy, went to a chiropractor, got his neck adjusted, and all of a sudden started having like intractable hiccups, like the worst hiccups you've ever seen or heard in your life. Like couldn't drink water, couldn't eat anything. He was like just choking all the time, could barely speak. And we didn't really know what was happening at first until he said he had gone to a chiropractor, and then we knew exactly what was going on. And it was a brainstem stroke. And it's like, he will have that for the rest of his life. Like, we can't undo that.
Yeah.
And it's just insane. I mean, there's plenty of examples of folks that have died because brainstem strokes, your brainstem controls everything that you don't think about. So your heart rate, your respiratory rate, your like GI tract, right? The muscles that move food through your body, like that's all controlled by the brainstem. And so if you lose one of those capabilities, good luck, babe. Not to quote Chapel Roan, but good luck, babe. And so chiropractors touching people's necks should be illegal. And it once was. It once
Really?
was.
What's
Yes.
up? What happened?
So,
was there a lobby?
Hold on. Oh, fuck. Hold on, you guys. I got to grab a charger. My shit's dying.
Alexis' shit is dying, people.
We kept her on too long.
Okay.
While Lex gets set up, I'm going to tell you guys what I heard about a chiropractor that is wrong.
Let's get in there.
So I was told that a chiropractor once hilariously was doing stuff to someone's back, cracking stuff around, and it was a deaf person. And then suddenly they said they could hear again. And so the chiropractor went around thinking they had cured deafness. Now, it's not very scientific to have a case study size of one and say, I've made a discovery. But also, apparently that's not possible. Lex gave us some details as to why. You want to say those?
Yes. God, I do. So, let me set the scene. The year is 1895. The year is 1895, and there's a white man by the name of Daniel Palmer.
Tracks.
I think it's Daniel. Yeah, it's Daniel David Palmer. And this is how this science, big air quotes, of chiropractics began. And this is available on google.com. This is public information.
Very nice.
Daniel Palmer wanted to be a doctor so bad, but simply put, dude was too stupid to get into med school. So what he did instead was lie. And he claimed that he went to a seance because spiritualism was on the rise back in 1895. People loved spiritualism. They would go and they'd sit around a table and there would be like ectoplasm coming out of people's heads. And it was all smoke and mirrors, right? But they would claim that they were talking to ghosts. And so Daniel Palmer claimed that during a seance, I am so fucking serious. This sounds like it's a lie, but I need you to know I am so dead ass. He claimed he went to a seance and the ghost of a dead doctor taught him how to crack backs in order to cure disease. That is the foundation that all of modern chiropractics is built off of. Does that sound like something you want to risk your life for?
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. But I kind of like, I have a couple of things here. Like, I kind of suspected that about chiropractors. If you got any, like, if we have my, stance on chiropractors, I'm glad we had you on, Lex, because it's mostly been vibe based up to this point. I just don't think that, like, we're fucking with spines here and, like, nerves. All right. I don't want any, like, and the noise, just the noise and, like, the movement. I'm like, it's too much for critical stuff, for that level of, like, movement, and just never really added up to me. So, if you're a chiropractor out there, I don't know what to tell you. I just always kind of had a vibe there. But the other thing is, like, I wonder if we're in a time, this is a little bit more abstract. You mentioned that this happened in 1895 when, spiritualism was on the rise. I think that time mirrors our own in more ways than one, because, like, back then, that's right around the turn of the century, and it was the Gilded Age. That's where, like, the roots of the labor movement came from. That's where, everything that would set us up for the New Deal and the mine wars in West Virginia, this, like, uprising in response to wealth concentration. It all had roots in a time like that in 1895. And I think we're kind of like in that now too, because this is actually crazy. The top 0.1% of people right now own more wealth than they did in 1895. We were just talking about this because we're close to May Day, but but that's the poster child for like wealth accumulation and control by a ruling class. And our own time has more concentrated wealth in the hands of fewer people. I think during that, people really turn to like things that they can control when everything else is controlled by a small wealthy group of people. And then you get these like populations searching for easy answers and for strongmen and for returns to national greatness and for cracking your back in a way that can cure your deafness. I think we've like come full circle back around to that.
We go cuckoo. This is the cuckoo banana era.
Cuckoo banana era, but hopefully people maybe get it in their head that instead of cracking your back, we should maybe take the power away from the ruling class. I'm hoping that's the direction we go.
Yeah, stop cracking your back and pick up a chair.
Yeah,
pick up a chair.
Bring back the Alabama boat fight.
Let's go WWE in this motherfucker.
The boat fight. I just keep returning to it. We need more boat fights up in here. We stopped that too early.
Yeah. I do want to address one thing, because I think you made a very, very good point, and I simply put, I want to continue shitting on chiropractors.
Nice, please pop off.
If your spine was malleable enough that a few cracks here and there actually did anything, every single football player on earth would be dead. I want you to think objectively about the amount of force that football players endure over and over again throughout their careers. If we could actually manipulate your spine by poking and prodding you, there would not be a single living football player.
Okay.
But people don't think about that. And it's just, I think, really sad, because I think there are a lot of parallels between the snake oil salesman of the 1890s and the current situation we find ourselves in. Like, I personally think trickle-down economics is a snake oil, and we have been sold it. Totally. We have been sold the idea that unions are bad for you. We have been sold this idea that a universal healthcare system would be somehow unobtainable in the richest country on earth. Like, we have been fed so many lies, and we're just letting them dog walk us. And I just don't get it, because like, my whole thing is, I don't give a fuck what your politics are. I just want you to have affordable healthcare. I don't give a fuck what your politics are. I think you deserve to live in a house. I don't give a fuck what your politics are. I think you should be able to afford food for your kids. Like, I wish that we realized just how much more we have in common with an unhoused man sitting on the sidewalk than we will ever have with the Waltons, the Bezos, the Musks, any of the billionaire class, Taylor Swift even. Like, you have more in common with the untouchables that you refuse to look at when you're walking down the side of the street than you will ever have with these billionaires that we idolize. And those are your neighbors. Whether or not you want to fucking acknowledge it, they're in your community. They're living near you. That's your neighbor, my guy. And we should take care of our neighbors. And I think especially, like, we talk a lot about how the left has lost young men. And I think that's insane, because like, men used to go to war, and men used to go to war to do what? Fight Nazis. Now we have men signing up to be one. What is that? Like, we have to redefine what it means to be a part of the society, to be masculine, and we have to make giving a fuck cool again. Because also, it is like, cool, man,
like get a cause, you know what I mean? Like, if you're out there in search of something that is going to make you masculine, is it not like fighting incredible powers that are like fucking all of our lives up? I mean, that is like a heroic cause in my book. I don't know. It seems kind of like you could say in your search for masculinity, you might find it in the war against billionaires.
I don't want to get put on an FBI list, but I fear I may have already made it onto one. But if you want women to thirst over you, did y'all see what happened to Luigi? There were instantly like women sending him their bras while he's in
not
jail.
Just women.
Like the amount of thirst. I know gold star lesbians that would have gone after him. Okay, like. If you want attention from women, incels, listen to me. I'm talking to you. If you want attention from women, wait, hold on. Let me not incriminate myself. If you want attention from women, you should do something that benefits the greater good of society.
It's a good way to put it. You know,
whatever that means for you.
I think that was very well put and very safely said.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I would agree.
I'm not inciting violence. I'm inciting empathy for your common man and woman. And
a good note to end on, Lex. You want to tell people where they can find more of your work? It's been great hearing from you, and I anticipate our listeners are going to want to hear more.
Thank you so much. I welcome everyone and all to my echo chamber. You can access my echo chamber on TikTok at Traveling Nurse, on Instagram at Traveling Nurse Lex. But if you search Traveling Nurse, I'll come up. The person that has that handle hasn't been active in years, and I can't get it back. But Traveling Nurse Lex, Traveling Nurse, probably at your local ER. You know, I have folks that recognize me at work now, and that's weird. But
yeah, I hope
that's
I never meet you. Actually.
I hope if I need care, Lex is there.
Okay, yeah, let me rephrase that.
I'll travel to you, actually.
If I really need to meet you, then I do hope it happens.
But yeah, those are my handles. And I just want to thank you guys for letting me come on and yap about our just broken ass system that we have in this country, and for giving me any sense of expertism, if you will, on this topic, because it feels good to be listened to. So I appreciate you guys.
Yeah, certified yapper Lex.
Certified yapper, and it feels good to hear it, from the mouth of a person who has lived on the front lines of this incredibly broken system that has got us all hostage. Lex, it has been wonderful. I will see you at I'm sure, coming to us soon, the Cory Booker book signing. We're all going to be there because we love the book Stand, about the 25-hour speech, doing really great things systemically.
His team obsessively watches my page, and I know that for a fact now. So hi, Cory. Hope you're well. And please stop funding genocide. Thank you so much.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Friend of Jared Kushner, but not the show. Cory Booker, the Kushner family.
Famed homeboy of Ivanka Trump.
Who could forget?
Yeah. Well, thanks, you guys. I appreciate you, and I hope everyone at home has a great day and picks up a chair. Pick up a chair,
everyone.
And that's
See you
that
next
on
time,
that.
JJ Nation.
Bye, JJ Nation.